Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Genealogy Radio Show, the radio show that is keeping you in the loop. This show airs out from Radio Corcaboshkin in beautiful Kilkee and was repeated on a Sunday at 4 p.m. And this week, our show will be discussing St. Patrick's Day, the stories and celebrations behind Ireland's national holiday. Eve, could you give us a short introduction on what St. Patrick's Day is and what it celebrates?
Absolutely. So St. Patrick's Day is a cultural holiday celebrated in Ireland and abroad on March 17th. Its name comes from the patron saint of Ireland, St. Patrick, who lived through the 5th century. His story starts when he was captured as a child in either Wales or Scotland and sold as a slave on Slemish Mountain in County Antrim. Here he herded sheep on a peaceful mountaintop before escaping back home, where he had a revelation ordering him to return to Ireland and teach the gospel. Through the monastic orders he founded, he is credited for increasing literacy in Ireland, revising and codifying the Brehon laws, and converting Ireland to Christianity. He wouldn't be the first Christian missionary to Ireland, but he was by far the most well-known. As he advocated the causes of women, the poor, and slaves, while conversing with monarchs and nobles, his influence on Ireland's culture and laws were significant. His birthday is March 17th, but his death year, like his birth year, is unknown. So St. Patrick had become a legendary character, and he was worshipped as a saint by the end of the 17th century, though he was never formally canonized. St. Patrick's legends include the narrative that he drove the snakes of Ireland into the sea, apparently after they began assaulting him during a 40-day fast. According to natural historians, though, there is no proof of snakes ever existing in Ireland because the country was too cold for reptiles to thrive during the Ice Age. Of course, many have pointed out the metaphorical link here between the legend snakes and Patrick's preaching of Christianity. St. Patrick's Day became a mostly secular occasion of festivity and celebration of all things Irish, thanks to immigrants, notably to the United States. The most elaborate festivities, which included extravagant parades, were held in cities with large numbers of Irish immigrants, who typically controlled political influence. So the first St. Patrick's Day parade was staged in Boston in 1737, followed by New York City in 1762. Since 1962, the city of Chicago has turned its river green to commemorate the event. The wearing of the green, which involves wearing green attire or a shamrock, the Irish national plant, in the lapel, is popular among both Irish and non-Irish people. The St. Patrick's Day celebrations have grown in popularity around the world. St. Patrick's Day has come to symbolize Irish culture and identity for many people, and it has its roots in Irish immigrant groups in the United States. Today, over 70 million people claim Irish ancestry globally, and the celebrations are a wonderful way for people all over the world to honour Ireland's distinctive culture, language, and music.
Thank you, Eve. Jack, could you tell us a little about the American influence on how we celebrate St. Patrick's Day today?
Yeah, no problem. In my personal opinion, the most interesting thing about the history of St. Patrick's Day is that how we celebrate St. Patrick's Day today in Ireland and abroad originated inside the US. What I mean by this is that the culture of St. Patrick's Day, as it is practiced today, and its parades, celebrations originated in America. St. Patrick's Day was a holiday in Ireland before this, but the holiday was a far cry from what it is today, how it is celebrated today in the present. It was a much more holistic day, very much true to the names of, being sort of a saint's day. It was a religious feast day to commemorate the patron saint of Ireland, and funny enough, green was not the color that was used to represent St. Patrick. It was blue until the 1798 Irish Rebellion. The earliest record of St. Patrick's Day celebration in America was in Boston, March 17th, 1737, where this celebration was a celebratory dinner between Irish semi-elites or rich, quite different from the celebration as we know it today, but being like so early, 1737, I think it's important to mention. So with the tradition of the parades, like Eve said before, it started out in Boston, but ironically enough, one of the longest running St. Patrick's Day's parade started in Manhattan, and it was done by a band of redcoats who were Irish born, but who marched through lower Manhattan to a St. Patrick's Day breakfast in a a local tavern, which of course is ironic because redcoats and Irish history with rebellion. So the parades started out in America as a response to the nativist anti-Catholic mobs who really just discriminated and hatred for Irish people. And so these parades were created as to show strength in numbers. And it was also to Irish Americans used them as ways to display their civic pride and their identity, fighting out the characterization of them as drunken, violent, criminalized, and diseased. St. Patrick's Day celebrations were originally focused on districts where the Irish lived and were highly localized so as to get more people and, again, to show strength in numbers. Irish Americans celebrated the Catholicism and patron saints and praised the spirit of Irish nationalism in their old country, but they also stressed their patriotic belief in their new home. In essence, St. Patrick's Day was a public declaration of a hybrid identity of Irish American.
Thank you, Jack.
St. Patrick's first started to honor St. Patrick on the anniversary of his death. The Christian people held great feasts for which Lenten food and alcohol restrictions were temporarily removed, which I just felt it was kind of funny to mention because on how drinking has become synonymous with the holiday today, when that might be somewhat of the connection. So now I'll just move on to St. Patrick's family tree. You don't necessarily have to be Catholic or Irish in order to have at least some familiarity with St. Patrick. Not everything you may have heard about his life can be taken as fact. What is certain is that St. Patrick was an actual person and not merely a legend. Here's a very brief look into St. Patrick's family tree. St. Patrick was born at Kilpatrick near Dumbarton in Scotland, somewhere between the year 385 and 387. Dumbarton history goes back at least as far as the Iron Age, and probably much earlier. It has been suggested that in Roman times, Dumbarton was the place of importance named as Aluna in Ptolemy historic map. Claudius Ptolemy was a mathematician, astronomer, astrologer, geographer, and a music theorist, who wrote about a dozen scientific treatises, 3 of which was of importance to later Byzantine, Islamic, and Western European science. That means that the saint that is most closely identified with Ireland wasn't actually Irish at all, he was Scottish. Or maybe he wasn't really Scottish either. His father was named Calpurnius, and his mother was named Conchessa. You might notice that these 2 names don't sound particularly Scottish. The parents of St. Patrick were Roman citizens. His father, Calpurnius, was from a Roman family of high rank. He held the office of decurio in the part of Britain where St. Patrick was born. It is worth noting that Conchessa and Calpurnius did not name their son St. Patrick. His real name was probably Maewyn Sucats. The Romanized version of his name was Patrius, which was the name of Patricus doing in Britain. The answer to this question lies in Calpurnius's title. He held the office of decurio. There are 2 meanings of this word. One meaning is that Calpurnius was the man in charge of the local council or senate of the colonia where Patricus was born. The title was an honor. The other meaning had military applications. In short, Calpurnius was the Roman official who was in charge of a Roman colony that was located in Britain. That means that Patricus started off in a very wealthy and somewhat powerful family. Somewhere between where Patricus turned 14 and where he turned 16, he was kidnapped. A group of Irish raiders attacked his family estates. The Irish marauders sold Patricus as a slave to an Irish chieftain named Milku. This took place somewhere around where the country of Antrim in Ireland is located today. Patrick's name was changed to an Irish name, Patrick. Patrick tended to the flock of his master's sheep until he was around 20 years old. Then he escaped and returned to his family. Soon after, he began studying for the priesthood. The rest is history or myth, or a little bit of both. He never married and he never had any children. Patrick died on March 17, 461. This means that when we celebrate St. Patrick's Day today, we are actually celebrating on the day that the man died. It had become the feast day for the saint. I'll pass it back to you, Keen.
Thank you. I'll speak now about the historical importance of the colour green on St. Patrick's Day. On St. Patrick's Day, it's customary to wear shamrocks, green clothing, or green accessories.
So next up, we'll hear from some of our other hosts. I'm going to ask Cian, could you speak about the historical importance of the colour green on St. Patrick's Day?
On St. Patrick's Day, it's customary to wear shamrocks, green clothing, or green accessories. St. Patrick is said to have used the shamrock, a three-leaved plant, to explain the Holy Trinity to the pagan Irish. This story first appears in writing in 1726, though it may be older. In pagan Ireland, 3 was a significant number. Irish had many triple deities, a fact that may have aided St. Patrick in his evangelization efforts. The colour green was further associated with Ireland from the 1640s, when the green harp flag was used by the Irish Catholic Confederation. James Connolly would later describe the flag prior to the 1916 Easter Rising as representing the sacred emblem of Ireland's unconquered soul. Green ribbons and shamrocks have been worn on St. Patrick's Day since at least the 1680s. Many might believe that the Emerald Isle and the colour green are linked because of the country's verdant landscape, but the association actually traces its roots to Irish political history. In fact, blue is believed to have been associated with Ireland before green was. Henry VIII claimed to be King of Ireland in the 16th century, and his flag at this point would have been blue. A light blue became associated with the Order of St. Patrick, an 18th century era order of knights, perhaps to create a shade of blue for the Irish that was different from the royal blue associated with the English. The earliest use of green for nationalistic reasons was seen during the violent Great Irish Rebellion of 1641, in which displaced Catholic landowners and bishops rebelled against the authority of the English crown, which had established a large plantation in the north of Ireland under King James I in the early 17th century. Military commander Owen Roe O'Neill helped lead the rebellion and used the green flag with a harp to represent the Confederation of Kilkenny, a group that sought to govern Ireland, though were ultimately defeated by Oliver Cromwell. The colour green cropped up again during an effort in the 1790s to bring non-sectarian Republican ideas to Ireland, inspired by the American Revolution and the French Revolution. The main society that promoted this idea, the Society of United Irishmen, often wore green. The importance of the colour green spread, and thanks in part to the poems and ballads written during this time, most famously the wearing of green. Chloe, could you tell us what traditions and symbols are significant to St. Patrick's Day?
Certainly. So St. Patrick's Day is historically observed through a number of traditions. These include preparing food like corned beef and cabbage, which actually originated in the United States, musical gathering called Céilís, and decorating with symbols like shamrocks and leprechauns. So the Shamrock, which is also known as the Shamrock by the Celts, was a sacred plant in ancient Ireland because it symbolized the rebirth of spring. By the 17th century, the Shamrock had become a symbol of emerging Irish nationalism. As the English began seizing Irish lands and make laws against the use of the Irish language and practice of Catholicism, many Irish began to wear the shamrock as a symbol of their pride and their heritage, with their displeased of the English rule. Music is often associated with St. Patrick's Day and Irish culture in general. From the ancient days of the Celts, music had always been an important part of Irish life. The Celts had an oral culture where religion, legend, and history were passed from one generation to the next by way of stories and songs. After being conquered by the English and forbidden to speak their own language, the Irish, like other oppressed people around the world, turned to music to help them remember important events and hold on to their heritage and history, as it often stirred emotions and helped to Denies people. Music was outlawed by the English. During her reign, Queen Elizabeth I even decreed that all artists and pipers were to be arrested and hanged on the spot. As Eve mentioned earlier, the snake is oftentimes associated with St. Patrick's due to an account where during one of his missions to Ireland, St. Patrick stood on a hilltop, which is now known as Croagh Patrick, and with his wooden staff banished all the snakes from Ireland. In fact, Ireland was never home to any snakes. The banishing of snakes was really a metaphor for the eradication of pagan ideology from Ireland and the triumph on Christianity. Within 200 years of Patrick's arrival, Ireland was completely Christianized. Another icon of St. Patrick's Day is that of the Leprechaun. The original Irish name for these figures of folklore is Leprechaun, meaning small-bodied fellow. Belief in leprechauns stemmed from Celtic belief in fairies. tiny men and women who use their magic powers to serve good or evil. In Celtic folklore, leprechauns were cranky souls responsible for mending the shoes of other fairies. Though or only minor figures in Celtic folklore, leprechauns were known for their trickery, which they often used to protect their much fabled treasure. Leprechauns have their own holiday on May 13th, but are also celebrated on St. Patrick's Day, with many people dressing up as the cunning fairies to celebrate the event. Now I'm going to pass on to Alina, who's going to talk about St. Patrick's well.
Thank you. First of all, happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody, and I hope you all enjoy the celebrations. Don't forget to make an offering or say a prayer at the ancient St. Patrick's Well in Garryowen, known as the Holy Well. And long before Christianity, St. Patrick turned up and baptized the Coltrane the Fair, the King of England, and his son. And it began a legacy of saints and scholars in Limerick. The St. Patrick's community spans from the outskirts of Garryowen, from the well in Garryowen, St. Patrick's Road, to Clare Street, where the Church of St. Patrick lies, which was built in 1816. But funnily enough, the school of St. Patrick's on the Dublin Road, so the community spans across different dioceses. I'm proud to live near this remarkable and holy site, an ancient site. And luckily enough, with the Limerick Civic Trust and the Garryowen Residents Association, we've been able to enhance the area of the well and bring it back to its former glory. The well itself, we've done a lot of maintenance and increased the biodiversity. And my colleagues, John, Tom, Martin, and Gary Jackson, have a lot of work and time put into it. And for the people of Garryowen and the community of St. Patrick, we have had many events. And during the COVID, we had a band, Teddy's Remedy, to come and play on St. Patrick's Day during the COVID and give everyone a day to remember. Actually, on today as well, we have a cleanup of the well at 5 p.m. where we have gloves, pickers, bags and everything provided for people that want to get involved. We're hoping to keep the area as beautiful as it is, and host events and concerts, and to highlight the importance of St. Patrick and the community of St. Patrick in Limerick. Thank you.
Thank you, Lena. I'd like to thank everyone here today for that brilliant show on St. Patrick's Day, the stories and celebrations behind Ireland's national holiday. I hope you learned something new. This show airs out again on a Sunday at 4 p.m. from Radio Cork Boschkin. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you for that, and thank you for a great show from Jack, Eve, Chloe, Cian, and Helena, and also thanks to Victor and Sarah. And may you have a happy St. Patrick's Day. We're the show that's keeping you in the loop.